Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and happy Friday. Wow, we have a lot to get to today, including the latest on second gentleman Doug Emhoff, and I use that term gentleman loosely, who has responded sort of and denied sort of the allegations of abuse that were broken by the Daily Mail. There have been two stories broken by the Daily Mail about Doug Emhoff now, one of which he was forced to admit, involving him cheating on his first wife with his child's nanny and getting her pregnant. And now, thanks to report number 2, we finally learned, we believe, what happened to that baby. And we've also learned about a new allegation that he physically abused a girlfriend, a reportedly successful, powerful, beautiful attorney who he was dating 2 years prior to meeting Kamala Harris. And now he's, again, sort of issued a denial. It is the lamest denial I've seen from a public figure involved in a scandal in quite some time. And most of the corporate media is completely ignoring the story. We are not going to do that here. Joining me now, Maureen Callahan. She's columnist for the Daily Mail and author of the must-read book, Ask Not. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. If you're tired of the same old coffee from those mega corporations pushing their woke agendas, listen up. It's time to take a stand and support a brand that truly embodies American values, Blackout Coffee. They stand with hardworking Americans who believe in family, faith, and freedom. They roast some of the most incredible coffee you will ever taste using only premium grade beans, roasted and shipped to you within 48 hours. And for the cold brew fans, Blackout Coffee is excited to announce the launch of their 2 new ready-to-drink cold brew coffee latte options. Don't settle for less. Make the switch to Blackout Coffee. Head on over to blackoutcoffee.com/MK or use the code MK for 20% off your first order. That's blackoutcoffee.com/MK. The code is MK. Join the movement. Taste the difference. Remember, with every sip, you are supporting a brand that stands for America. Be awake, not woke. Maureen, great to have you. What a day to have you. And by the way, I should tell the audience, we were going to have Tim Dillon today. He has COVID, so we're going to rebook Tim because he's not feeling well. And that worked out just fine. Love Tim, but it's a newsy day and we have a lot to go over. And you guys at the Daily Mail have been doing all of the news breaking on this story. So here is the denial. And we'll get into the specifics of the allegation, although this audience knows about them because we reported them the other day. His denial that he, quote, forcefully slapped his ex-girlfriend in 2012 outside of some Cannes black tie event in France is as follows from a spokesperson who is not named. We don't have a name. We have a spokesperson telling Semaphore, not the Daily Mail, Semaphore, quote, "This report is untrue," which means absolutely nothing. It could be that one word should have been or instead of and. They have an age wrong. The date was wrong. We weren't actually at that hotel. We have no idea what this report is untrue refers to. And then they add any suggestion that he would or has ever hit a woman is false. Now, I will tell you, Maureen, this audience knows that I'm obsessed with Phil Houston, CIA guy, 25 years, invented their deception detection methods that are used by the CIA, FBI, Secret Service, law enforcement all over this country. And I've not only read Phil's book, but had him on the show many times, countless times, and I've taken his class. And one of the things he teaches you is that statements like, any suggestion that he would or has ever hit a woman is false are exactly the kind of denials that indicate falsehood, that indicate a liar. If I said to you, Maureen Callahan, did you ever beat the shit out of a professional, successful attorney in Cannes, France? You would say, no, never. It would not be through a spokesperson, unnamed, any suggestion that I have ever hit a woman or would hit a woman is false. you as a truth teller would run toward the facts, toward them. You would say, I was in conference. This was my girlfriend. Let's find videotapes. They won't show me hitting anyone. Let's go to, I'll release my emails with this person after our affair ended. Absolutely no accusations. You would be like, I am an open book because I did not do the thing. It would not be some amorphous, passive voice. Any suggestion that it's ever happened is false through the I'm telling you, it's a lie. You can tell it's a lie by the way it is worded. That is my opinion. And meantime, complete blackout by everyone in the media about this. And I do mean everyone. Hats off to Chris Cuomo, who gave it some coverage. But even Semaphore did not do anything on the story until they got the denial from him. Washington Post, New York Times, you name it. No one will touch this thing with a 10-foot pole, even though they have three, count them three, anonymous to us, but not to the Daily Mail, friends of hers, professionals who have gone on record with the Daily Mail that this happened. They know this professional, successful attorney very well, and they've provided receipts, airline tickets, in the moment testimonials of this woman calling, in particular her male friend, while she was still reportedly terrified that he might continue the assault. Maureen, what do you make of it?
There is so much to dig into here, Megyn, and I'm so glad that you have picked up on this story and are running with it, because as you just said, the rest of the media has ignored it completely. And this was a conversation I was having with my editor as I was working on this column about this assault, attack, whatever. Who's going to pick it up? Are we going to get, this story should have legs on it for days. And of course, nobody picked it up. Now, to your point, we have three incredible sources, highly powered, intelligent members of the elite who she told about this, two contemporaneously, one of whom, a New York City businessman, she called after she claims Doug Emhoff smacked her in the face so hard that she spun around. Think about the force that takes. Secondly, this was outside an A-list gala. It was the AmFAR annual AIDS Foundation research benefit. Lot of stars there. This is something he did on the valet line. Imagine what he does in private if he's capable of doing something like this in public. The call that this accuser made was seconds after he smacked her in the face, a humiliation that is meant to humiliate as well as inflict pain. She crawls into a cab. She's trying to get away from him. She says he opens the door and climbs in right after her. So she makes this phone call to her male friend in New York City as, she says, protection, to make him aware that there is a man on the other end of this phone who's going to hear everything that goes down. Now, you are telling me on the heels of the Nanny story, which the media has minimized, they're still calling him a wife guy. Jen Psaki of MSNBC still does that incredibly disgraceful interview. Oh, what does it feel like to be a man who supports women? Are you kidding me? That's a question.
And she does that after the Daily Mail reported, and he admitted that he banged the nanny while married to his first wife and got her pregnant. After, we'll play it just so those who haven't seen it. Knowing all of that, Jen Psaki does this when she gets Doug Emhoff in her studio.
An interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
It's funny. I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this. And to me, it's the right thing to do. You know, support women. When we lift up women, we support women, whether it's pay equity, childcare, family leave, and all these issues that, and you know, this post-Dobbs hellscape. Women should not be less than.
There's a pop culture phrase, wife guy, which you've kind of been known as. Are you familiar with this?
I've heard about it.
As called a wife guy, a proud wife guy? How do you feel about that?
Well, if I do something annoying to Kamala and she gets upset, I'll just show her that article.
Right.
Maureen.
I have no words. I mean, Megyn, when you look at that, what do you think? Like, you talk a lot about the death of traditional media. I mean, we're seeing it right there in real time. This is a woman who is interrogating him and failing us, her fellow women. Forget about journalism. What is she doing there? What on earth is she doing? I also want to just add that in this woman's detailed version of events as relayed to these three sources, the evidence that the mail collected is copious, detailed, legitimate. She says that Doug Emhoff, about 2 months before this all went down, so this happened in May 2012, they began seeing each other in March of 2012, he mentioned the nanny to her. And he did it in a way that was free of shame, free of regret. It was just this niggling factoid that was part of his past. And in his version of events, she may have fabricated this pregnancy to extort him for $80,000. She later learned that the nanny had told people that his aggression, his anger, he yelled, he did something, in her estimation, caused her to lose that pregnancy. Now, there is a police report, an LAPD police report, that lines up with the time that the nanny would have been pregnant, that was designated a level 3 response. That's a life-threatening emergency, lights on, sirens going. They respond to the place where the nanny was living at the time. Other than that, there is nothing available about that police report. Who was involved, what happened, how it was resolved.
That is so chilling. All of that is in the Daily Mail's second report on Doug Emhoff, which hit on October 2nd. And that business about the nanny is so critical because let me tell you what's not denied in Doug Emhoff's unnamed spokesperson's or the campaign's unnamed spokesperson's statement to Semaphore. That he paid the nanny $80,000 to sign an NDA that was not broken in the first Daily Mail report a month earlier. This is new, that he paid her $80,000 to sign an NDA, and that the nanny, according to Doug Emhoff, as told to this attorney he dated, blamed him for what we now know, if this is true, was a miscarriage of the baby, and that she thought he had been aggressive. She accused him, according to him, of being aggressive with her to the point where she lost the baby, and that the LAPD visited her home around this time in an emergency situation, and we can't find any evidence of what specifically happened. Where is his denial of that? It's not in there. And I actually went on Twitter last night and added Semaphore and said, will you please go back to him, since you clearly are in touch with him and he'll speak to you, and ask for a denial on that. Let's hear what he has to say about that, because that nanny is out there. The Daily Mail has her name. They have her photos. And while she may be under an NDA, there have been a lot of people who have broken NDAs in situations like this if the circumstances are, pressing enough. So we'll see whether she continues adhering to that. For what it's worth, the Daily Mail also reporting that this successful attorney he dated and allegedly beat, that's what I'm going to call it, beat. You slap a woman open-handed. One of her witnesses says it might have been a punch, so hard you whip her around, and that's how angry you are, that she is a Democrat, and that the friends are Democrats, that they actually don't really want to even be talking about this, but they were so disgusted with how he's being painted by Kamala Harris, her campaign, and the media. They felt like right is right, and the public must know what's real about this guy.
100%. Now, we went to Doug Emhoff as soon as we got this story. It took Megyn 4 days for him to issue this sort of blanket, vague, general denial. Why does it take 4 days? As you just said at the top of your show, if I'm getting accused of something horrible that I did not do, I'm immediately just going to say, not true, and open the books, have a look at everything. It's not true. And why is Kamala getting a pass for this? She is running. If I hear one more time, as a prosecutor, I never asked someone if they were a Republican or Democrat. I only ever asked, are you okay? If I hear that one more time without her being forced to answer for what seems to be an emerging pattern by her designated wife guy, as far as the way he treats women in his life who become inconvenient or who anger him, then I really don't know what further evidence we need that the mainstream media is actively working to elect Kamala and Tim.
Let me tell you something else you do. If somebody accused me or my husband of beating someone, let's go with my husband, since it's not generally the case that women are beating on men, but it can happen. But let's just say my husband got accused of beating a prior girlfriend. You know what the first thing he would do would be? He would call that girlfriend and have her issue a statement. Say, this is so, I mean, assuming he were innocent, he would say, I don't know why they're saying this. They're trying to tear down Meg, who's running for president. So would you be willing to put out a statement of what is real? And any woman to whom this did not happen would say, of course, this is so absurd. And she would put out a statement saying, would you please stop? You know, we dated for a short time. We're good. Where's the statement? Where is the statement from the Democrat attorney who he dated saying, this is bullshit, Daily Mail. Screw you. You've gotten it wrong. Why are 3 of this woman's friends talking to the Daily Mail, giving receipts, travel receipts, that, by the way, only this woman would have? Clearly, she gave the friends the receipts because the friends don't hold on to somebody else's travel receipts from 12 years ago. This woman clearly is not ready to deny this because I'm sure this woman ultimately, if she does choose to speak, will say it's true. And she's probably still angry about it. She's reportedly got a great life. I believe that she's moved on. And the Daily Mail reports that she's a beautiful woman, that she's a very successful professional. She's probably moved on to another husband at this point. And if she really is a Democrat, Maureen, there are consequences in those circles to her if she comes forward, right? The Democrats will turn on her. She could be hurt professionally if she comes out and puts her face with this report. They're not going to be sympathetic toward her for getting slapped in the face at Cannes. They're going to be pissed off she told.
You know who I want Oprah to go after? I want Oprah to do a sit down with this woman. I want the eyes of the most powerful public figures we have, the most so-called trusted voices. Oprah did a very cuddly, soft-focused sit-down interview with Kamala, you know, gassing her up, convincing the women of America, this is your person to vote for. Why not go after these 2 women who both have extremely disturbing stories to tell about Doug Emhoff? Where is the New York Times, which, by the way, last weekend revisited all of Trump's accusers, these old stories, revisited them all. Where's the New York Times on this? Where are any of the female op-ed writers on this? The ones
go find
who
the
love
police
to be
report.
The bears. Go find the police report.
Interview the nanny.
Find out.
Interview the nanny.
Find out. Interview the nanny. Find out what happened to that pregnancy. You know, NDAs, as you mentioned, in this post-Me Too landscape, a lot of those get broken when serious allegations of assault are leveled. And it's sort of understood that the person who signed the NDA will probably not be made to suffer in any court for breaking it. So
I don't think Doug Emhoff is going to be suing her for 80 grand.
I don't think so either. And I think it's also complete journalistic malpractice that everyone who's traveling with Kamala such as she travels around, this is not the number one question. How is this not the number one question? How can you ask the women of America for their vote when your husband may have a very disturbing pattern with women?
Let me tell you something. When I was at Fox News, we reported, this is long before Donald Trump came for me at that debate. We reported on his ex-wife, Ivana, claiming that Trump had raped her when they were married, and the fact that she later recanted. On my show, we reported that. Trump was very angry that we reported that and called me and yelled at me. All of this I reported in my book and later and elsewhere. It's all been out there. But my point is, I had no beef with Trump whatsoever. I like Trump. But I reported that news because it hit and it was a big deal. And Michael Cohen, Trump's top advisor at the time, defended it by saying you can't legally rape your wife. When I got to NBC, we put on accusers, yes, of Trump's, also accusers of Roy Moore, who was the Republican Senate candidate running in Alabama at the time. There were some 9 women accusing him of sexual assault. Okay, I did that, notwithstanding the fact that my sympathies have been with the right for over a decade. It's not that I'll always vote Republican. It's just I'm more right-leaning in my ideology, if I have any. And because I'm an honest reporter, and I will bring you the news, whether it hurts, quote, my side or not. Who in the left-wing media will be like that, will do that, will live up to their journalistic duty and look into whether we have a possible serial abuser about to ascend to the first gentleman position with access to God knows what kind of personnel files and opportunities and world leaders, not to mention the possible sitting president of the United States. Who will do their duty?
What I also love about this is the abject hypocrisy of this campaign, which, because it's so substance-free and devoid of specifics, is running on character, on good judgment, on values, morality, ethics. And again, they're just getting this complete pass with these very inconvenient, legitimate, credible accusations. And they are not being asked a single thing. And it is so hypocritical. And you cannot pull the wool over people's eyes this way. Like, you can try to, enact a media blackout, but because the Mail will report what we find, and because people like you will pick it up and run it, people will see this for exactly what it is. And I think that you're completely right when it comes to the slow but undeniable terminal condition the mainstream media is in.
The Daily Mail report has got, as I point out, American Express travel receipts and so on. And it also gets into great detail about what exactly happened in Cannes that night. You mentioned some of it. They call the accuser Jane. This is Emhoff's ex-girlfriend, saying they had both been drinking. There was a gigantic line for taxis. They were trying to get out of the event. Quote, Jane went, this is them quoting their source, the Mail source she called from the car crying. Jane went up to one of the valet guys, offered him 100 euros or whatever to get to the head of the line. She told me she put her hand on his shoulder, the valet's. Doug apparently thought that she was flirting and came over and slapped her in the face. She slapped him back. My impression is he had a lot to drink. She was sobbing, but she wasn't slurring her words when she called him on the phone afterward. She broke up with him that night. Now what, and Jane told a different friend, another female New York attorney, about it at the time, and said his attack on her came out of nowhere. This witness says, quote, They had dinner. She said Doug was very charming. It was lovely. By this point, it was between 2 and 3 a.m. Things were still raging. The party, she means. She was wearing 4-inch heels and a floor-length gown, so it was time to go. She said there had been no fight before he hit her. You would have thought it was this fairy tale trip. She put her hand on the valet's shoulder. This is the second witness. And as she was talking to him, Doug comes up. She said he turned her around by her right shoulder and she was completely caught off guard. He hauled up and slapped her so hard she spun around. She said she was in utter shock. She was so furious, she slapped him on one side, then on the other cheek with her other hand. He then forced his way into the cab with her as she was trying to get away from him. And the friend says later, she asked Jane whether Emhoff ever apologized. She said no, but he commented about the hit she gave him. He said he was a tennis fan, explains the friend. All he said to her was, "Don't worry about it. You got one across the court and down the line." Unapologetic. But the thing is, and they never saw each other again. This is not, I wouldn't be justifying this as like, oh, they were fighting and, the tempers were high. But the fact that this allegedly came out of nowhere, Maureen, that he saw this woman he'd only been dating for a couple of months place her hand on the shoulder of a stranger, a valet, whose attention she was trying to get so they could get out of there, that caused such a rage and temper that in public, in front of all these celebrities you mentioned and others, or those who were at this event, he slapped her so hard she spun in her 4-inch high heels is stunning. And if there's any truth to this, I say again, it would be the lead story on every news channel and in every publication if only Doug Emhoff and his spouse were Republicans.
There's no question about it whatsoever. And it really, I find it so infuriating and saddening at the same time that this woman, what he did to her, and every little detail that you sort of really elucidated there, it tells you a real story about who this guy really just might be. This is somebody who was dating this woman for 2 months. Not that any sort of timeline gives you an excuse for that, but they barely knew each other, you know? And she's trying to get them out of there quickly. And he feels that he is justified in humiliating her and assaulting her in public because what she dared to did he find this an affront to his masculinity? Did he find this somehow a humiliation? And what is his response when he feels that way? It's to slap a woman in the face so hard she spins around in her 4-inch heels. It's amazing she didn't fall down. And then when she tries to get away from him, oh no, you're not going to get away from him. You're not going to humiliate me like this. I'm getting in the car with you. I'm going to force my way in. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? If this were my husband, as you just said, who was being accused of such a thing, my first thought would be to defend him because surely it cannot be true. And it makes me wonder. The other day you were talking about how closely Kamala and Doug were vetted because her rise was so sudden and unexpected. And it really makes me my question is what did she know about him? And when did she know it? Her weirdness at the DNC with him, I was watching their body language really closely. This was right after the Nanny story broke. She seemed very stiff with him. She seemed very resistant to him. She seemed angry. And I took that to mean that this was news to her. She didn't know any of it. Did she know about this? I mean, I really want to know what she knows and what she doesn't, because this to me goes to her judgment.
I don't know what's true with Doug Emhoff. I believe these allegations. I'm just going to be honest. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. And if I am, I'll be the first to report that on this air. But for all the reasons we've just outlined, I believe this happened. And I will say, in my experience, and I've interviewed countless victims of spousal abuse. It doesn't tend to be a one-time thing. It doesn't tend to be a one-time thing, especially when the rage is so intense that you would assault somebody who's a new girlfriend to you in public when there's not even a fight. That is truly extraordinary. So we need to get to the bottom of this man's character, given the access he's about to have to the potentially most powerful person in the free world. I mean, that's the job Kamala Harris is asking for. And this man will be sleeping every night in our White House. Is this the level of respect he has for women? Is this a level of anger management he has? We need to know more before this person ascends any higher up the totem pole of power. And you look back at Doug Emhoff and the complete snow job we've been getting about his character. I mean, that's what made the Friends come out very clearly to the Daily Mail. I'm sure they would prefer Kamala Harris as president to Trump in some ways, but they were so disgusted, reportedly, at watching Jen Psaki and Good Morning America, and I'll show you what they did, and the DNC hold him up as like the spousal Mr. Rogers, just the sweetest, most rooting for you, most gentle kind of guy, that I think they felt they needed to speak out. And we have been told from people who know the accuser that they're disgusted. They're disgusted by his denial now. This is a reaction, new reaction to his denial. They're disgusted by it. And that they are begging her to come forward, to go on the record. I mean, obviously she is welcome here at any point and will be given a very fair hearing, but that she needs to tell this story because we need to know what we're dealing with. But here is, Maureen, let's just take a walk down memory lane, okay? Here was Doug Emhoff at the DNC. This is post the Daily Mail's first report about banging the nanny and impregnating another woman, his child's nanny and teacher, while he was married still to wife number one. They put him up there and he does his aw shucks routine, and all the glorification of the media happens thereafter. Here he was in a speech almost universally praised by the media.
As I got to know her better and just fell in love fast, I learned what drives Kamala. And it's what you've seen over these past 4 years, and especially these past 4 weeks. She finds joy in pursuing justice. She stands up to bullies just like my parents taught me to. And she likes to see people do well, but hates when they're treated unfairly.
Then let's go. Okay. So first of all, thoughts on that and him at the DNC with that aw shucks routine.
Is it just me, or does he sound a little drunk? He sounds a little drunk
like his
to
wife.
me. A little slurry, a little like sliding around the points he's trying to make. This is also the thing that is so incredibly exhausting. Again, Kamala stands up to bullies. Well, let's ask like the 90% of her staff that has fled over the past 3 years because apparently she's such a bully and she blames everybody else for not doing the reading of the briefing books. And I just look at this guy and I just think, what is the media doing? I feel like they feel like, oh, this is the kind of man the Dems and the left-leaning media valorize. And they've created him out of whole cloth because I don't think this is Doug Emhoff. Doug Emhoff, as we reported, was a lawyer who had to step away from his job, not so that he could just fully support his wife in her political ambitions, but because his client roster was really problematic. Among them were an arms dealer who was selling to Afghanistan, Big Pharma, and a nightclub impresario who was charged with sexual assault and sexual battery. But the media has, as I wrote in this column, I don't understand it. Like, it's like they presented him like a neuter. Like he's just a guy, like he's a Ken doll with no genitalia, like literally, he's got no balls. He's just happy to sit in the corner and like, pedal hard while his wife makes this run that is just, it's a joke. It's a laugh. And it's like, it's cool. Like, what's cool about it? Like, the New Yorker just ran this really weird story, covering him on the campaign trail, and how all these female voters were like, oh my God, his musical taste is so cool. Like, he went to the record store and he bought like Stone Roses on vinyl. And if he likes The Cure, I think I'm just going to keel over and die. Like, this is the level of discourse that the left-leaning media is giving us vis-a-vis Doug and his wife. And they're both charlatans. They're both fakes. They're both phonies, and for those who've seen that clip that's going viral with the MSNBC producer, who's basically saying,
have that. We'll get to that for sure.
Yeah, we're Pravda. Her message is our message. We're doing everything we can to help her win this election. So who are we supposed to trust? You can't trust what they're telling you.
Here's another example. All right, this is Good Morning America. Again, this is post the Daily Mail's report on the nanny and the impregnating as he's cheating on the first wife, but pre the slap, which ABC is ignoring anyway. They get Doug Emhoff, and here's an example of how that went. Top 5.
Why is New Jersey special to you?
So how have things changed for you in the past 2 months? So for those who may criticize and say, well, she hasn't done that in her 3.5 years in office as vice president, do you think that's unfair? And if she become first gentleman, what would that say about, defining the gender roles and about masculinity?
That's it. That's where they went with him.
It's so embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And I really think, I was thinking about this in revisiting the Jen Psaki interview and even the Stephanie Ruhle interview with Kamala, which if you only heard it, you were missing Stephanie's body language, which was bouncy and encouraging. And she was smiling and nodding along as she was trying to help Kamala land the plane to make a point, any point.
So true.
I just don't think these people possess shame. I don't think it's something that they're wired with. I would expect to be called into my boss's office and, if not fired, put on probation for a performance like that in what we are told is the most consequential election ever. I don't think this is going to work out for them, for any of them. I don't think it's going to work out for her, and I don't think it's going to work out for these so-called journalists. Watching Rachel Maddow the other night after the Veep debate say, right off the bat, one of those candidates was polished and together, and the other one won.
Sure.
It's like,
Jan.
Did we see the same thing? Did we all just witness the same thing? I had people texting me who do not consider themselves Republicans at all, who are out the gate were like, holy crap, I would vote for this guy. I would vote for J.D. Vance. Look at this performance. Look at what he's saying. One of my friends said something I thought was so smart about the way in which J.D. Vance was exhibiting adrenaline control. I thought that was so on the money.
It's true.
Because when you looked at Walz, who was just like there with his mouth hanging open and clearly for a coach, never watched back game film, never saw how he looks and presents when he's not talking and how he does sound when he is talking, and was not prepped to address one of his biggest lies, my favorite, perhaps. I was at Tiananmen Square. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Right. I was there.
Yeah.
I remember the whole thing. I almost got shot, basically. Turns out, as it turns out, the truth is he watched the Joy Luck Club that night. That's as close as he got.
Probably. And in a related development, so, and this is, again, it just tells you where we are. Brian Williams, the lying liar, who was almost saw dead bodies floating by in Katrina, lie, embedded with SEAL Team 6, lie. I mean, I could go on. He is in talks with Amazon to cover election night for them.
Yes. Oh, it's a done deal. Steve Krakauer tells me it's a done deal. And by the way, it's being billed as like the nonpartisan, just purely factual news broadcast. It's going to bring you the election results, Maureen. You can't make it up.
There's no one I trust more than Brian Williams to give me the blow-by-blow that night. We're all going to be out in the bag anyway.
His name has become synonymous with lying, with self-aggrandizement. That's what Tim Walz is doing. He's a Brian Williams. He tells lies that either are totally pointless or that make him look better. Those are his two favorite categories. Yeah, no, it's incredible. But I do want to spend a minute. You raised this in your piece. You've got a great piece on this whole thing on the Daily Mail, separate and apart from the one that we discussed. It's out there right now. And the headline here is Kamala Harris and her media lackeys parade her wife guy, beta hubby Doug Emhoff as a model feminist. So Maureen Callahan rages, how can they stay so shamefully silent now that he's accused of hitting his ex? Okay. Kamala Harris. The problem for her here, other than the obvious ones, are that she has painted herself as this champion of women who are abused, women who are hurt by men, the avenger of women who are in that position, and the woman who will excoriate any man accused of putting a woman in that position. So what does she do now that she's chosen to make that a key part of her campaign, same as she's chosen to make that a key part of her alleged professional personality? And it got me to thinking back on that now famous cross-examination she did of Brett Kavanaugh, when she went in there like some badass prosecutor. This guy's been accused of sexually assaulting somebody, and I will leave this room with his balls in my back pocket because of these 30-year-old unsupported allegations. 30-year-old unsupported allegations. Here she was during the Kavanaugh hearings.
Judge Kavanaugh, have you taken a professionally administered polygraph test? All three of the women who have made sworn allegations against you have called for an independent FBI investigation into the claims. So I'm going to ask you one last time. Are you willing to ask the White House to authorize the FBI to investigate the claims that have been made against you?
The FBI would gather witness statements. You have the witness statements.
I don't want to debate with you how they do their business. It's a yes or no, and then we can move on.
I've had 6 background investigations over 26 years.
Sir, as it relates to the recent allegations, are you willing to have them do it?
The witness testimony is before you. No witness who was there supports that I was there.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a no, and we can move on. Do you agree that it is possible for men to both be friends with some women and treat other women badly?
Okay. This is a woman whose administration right now is parading the first spouse into cabinet meetings and ceding control to that first, in this case, lady. They're fine with that. They are fine ceding control of cabinet meetings to the first spouse. Will her husband take a polygraph? Will her husband submit to an FBI background check when it comes to his alleged abuse of women? Serial? Will he? Will she agree to it preemptively so we can put this matter to rest and make sure what we are or are not getting in our White House, in our Oval Office, in our cabinet meetings? If her boss's behavior is any sort of an example, I've got my doubts.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think a lot about Hillary Clinton with this stuff. You know, with Bill, and I don't know why, you probably know better than I do, why the media landscape has shifted so much. I mean, it took the national news media a long time to catch on or actually really see that they had to cover Bill's, what they called back then, bimbo eruptions. And it was like the National Enquirer was the only publication on this story with the Jennifer Flowers stuff. And they kept trying to say she was out of her mind. She was making it up. She was like a political operative. And then she emerged with the audio tapes and it was a done deal. And I I feel the same way about John Edwards. Like, the National Enquirer was on John Edwards and Rielle Hunter and him cheating on his dying wife and getting his mistress pregnant, and nobody wanted to touch it until it was too big to ignore. And we have such a short window now with this. It feels like, it feels like the shortest window ever. It's like the streaming election, right? Like, it's released in a theater for 2 weeks and then it's streaming at home and then that's it. And it's like, we got Kamala shoved down our throat and she's the one and that's it. And we got to get her across the finish line so that Trump doesn't win this election at any conceivable cost. And if that cost is the kinds of women that Kamala Harris loves to say she is the protector of, the warrior for, then so be it. Women, once again, are expendable. And I just implore every woman who is thinking about voting for her, like, think about what this is telegraphing to you and your worth to them as they run on abortion rights and feminism and good character, because they do not give a shit about you.
Think about George Stephanopoulos. He was the one who participated in the war room creation against those so-called bimbos who are accusing Bill Clinton. We know this from George Stephanopoulos himself. And now he hosts this program and purports to be some champion of women. Remember, he had Nancy Mace on there, a victim of rape herself, and he was cross-examining her on why she wouldn't condemn Trump for his alleged sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room 30 years ago. And he's now again a champion of women, even if it means excoriating an actual rape victim who's sitting there in front of you. Where's he? Come on, you're our champion, George. Do your thing. Get out there. Call the nanny. Call the friends. The Daily Mail has a lot of great reporters and a lot of resources, but ABC News has a lot of resources too. Start making some phone calls. Get the friends on your Sunday show so you can protect a woman. You can stand up for a woman who is claiming she was abused by someone your team is trying to put in the White House. Do it, George. We can't wait. Here's the other thing. Kamala Harris is out there. She's told this story 10,000 times now. You and I have talked about it, about her whole reason for becoming a DA, becoming a prosecutor. This is how she is trying to endear herself to us with this story of her friend who was sexually abused. Watch.
You see, when I was in high school, I started to notice something about my best friend, Wanda. So one day I asked if everything was all right, and she confided in me that she was being sexually abused by her stepfather. And I immediately told her she had to come stay with us, and she did. I became a prosecutor to protect people like Wanda. As a prosecutor, when I had a case, I charged it not in the name of the victim, but in the name of the people. For a simple reason. In our system of justice, a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us.
Where are those principles now? And who buried the LAPD report on the nanny?
I mean, that feels like a rhetorical question, frankly. I mean, it's astonishing. It's astounding. None of this is going to come back to bite her as long as the media continues to cover for her and for Dougie Doug. And
if the woman comes out, if the alleged victim comes out,
now we're talking. If the nanny comes forward, now we're talking. And we can only hope. And it feels unfair because it feels like they're just going to be victimized all over again unless they go to a place like the Mail or like the Megyn Kelly show where they know they're going to get a fair and full hearing.
I dare anybody to do that. Honestly, on this show in particular, I have a proven track record of calling people out on this shit, irrespective of whether they are on the right or on the left. And so I would do this and have done this for people accusing Trump too. And the rest of the media should do. Do you remember the ubiquitous coverage when Russell Brand got accused by
Yes.
those women. All these same media outlets that are, they see nothing, they hear nothing. They were all over the Russell Brand allegations. Where are they now? All right, Maureen, stand by. There's a lot more to get to. Quick break, and then we're back. Health has been a big topic around the country over the past few weeks, thank God. And one thing we don't talk about enough is how exercise plays a vital role in that. And it's not just cardio. Truly, it's not. We really need to look at strength training. More muscle helps to boost metabolism and helps as we age. But let's face it, many are intimidated when it comes to lifting weights at a gym, not to mention the fact that we're all busy and we don't necessarily have the time. And this is where Jacked Up Fitness comes in. They bring the gym to you, a full machine that fits in your house and does it all. It's an all-in-one home gym. It allows you to do multiple strength training exercises, and best of all, it comes with access to their app, which includes multiple workouts where you just push play and follow along. Jacked Up Fitness is an American company, and they are giving 900 machines this year to the Wounded Warrior Project. Love that. So if you're looking to take charge of your health and help veterans on their road to recovery, order your home gym today and get at getjackedup.com, at getjackedup.com, and enter the code MK for 10% off your own home gym. Okay, let's get into this. The anatomy of a smear. Recently, the disgusting lamestream media tried to take down, of all people, Rich Lowry over an appearance he made on this show. It was a live broadcast, and I'm losing track of my news events now. I think it was after the second assassination attempt. Yes, it was. We went live, as we've done with Rich on many assassination attempts over the summer. There's so many, and debate coverage and so on. He's on the show a lot, and in live, we're always live. Anyway, so in discussing at that time the Springfield, Ohio story and the migrants who had been brought there by the Biden administration, all that, Rich flubbed his words and would later explain he was conflating the words immigrants and migrants. And it sounded a little dicey. It was obvious to me he had made a flub. I've known Rich a long time. You'd be hard pressed to find a more decent, honorable, good man than Rich Lowry. He's been in the public eye for decades, never been accused of racism never. He is just totally above board in every way. And by the way, the accusations don't make it so. I can speak to that. In any event, so he had a verbal flub. He moved on. That was it. But those cretins at Media Matters, who monitor everyone who's right of center and their broadcasts, decided to pull it, put it out on the internet, and tell the world he had said the N-word. Here is the original clip.
The police have gone through 11 months of recordings of calls, and they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants taking geese from ponds.
Okay. So, first of all, the absurdity of suggesting that Rich would have said the N-word just so in casual use on this show on a live broadcast, like he would have, that's the way Rich talks. I mean, this is what Media Matters fantasy about conservatives is. And not just Media Matters, but some in the far left. And that I would have sat there like, sure, that's a fine word to just throw around in front of my live audience. No problem. And that we then would have later, because this is what we do, cut the whole segment as a podcast and released it on all podcast forums without cutting it. Sure, let's put that word out there for everybody and put it on YouTube. Yes, we stand by that and cut. Like, it's just so absurd, right? So I ignore Media Matters. I couldn't give a shit about them other than I note them as a terrible, evil force, but I don't respond to them. So they get this going pretty much with the far left. You know, there a couple of more mainstream people weighed in on it, but mostly to defend Rich and say, like, what are you doing? But enter NPR. And NPR decided to write it up as though Rich were guilty of doing it in an absolute smear of the guy. And today they have admitted that they were wrong, that they didn't live up to their own standards, that that's not what he said. And while there is no apology to Rich Lowry, which there should be, NPR, they admit through their sort of public editor, the person who's supposed to be the liaison between NPR and its audience, that the story as originally published wasn't just unfair, it was inaccurate. The story told readers Lowry, quote, appeared to use the racial slur. And they make clear that is not the case. They point out their own media editor went back and said, that's not what Rich had said. And then they say this: second, after recognizing that the story was wrong, NPR should have acknowledged the changes to both the headline and the body of the story, because they had updated it to try to sort of slide in his denials and the truth without acknowledging they'd smeared him. And they should have included a formal note of clarification, because readers were much more likely to come away from the original story with the belief that Lowry actually said the racial slur. A clarification note would be a public acknowledgement that the first story fell short. This story did not meet NPR's standards. And they said our original story was written in a way that created more confusion to the point of being misleading. Who was it written by? It was written by some trans activist who goes by the first letter C, last name Mandler, who spent C's career in activism with GLAAD and other media outlets, trying to be one of, the very annoying trans activists who are not representative of the actual trans community, but just absolutely vicious. They are. I don't know C, but I can see C is also dishonest and vicious in the way C, just the letter, reported for NPR. So where does one go to get one's reputation back, Maureen? Because Rich had not one, but two cancellations from the absolutely shameful Badger Institute, which is supposed to be a conservative organization. Shame on you, disgusting people. Don't you ever send me an invitation to do anything for you. And also Indiana State, neither of whom has apologized to Rich. What do you make of it?
Rich Lowry, had he called for the Intifada, had he joined with pro-Hamas protesters, he'd be fine, he'd be lionized. He made a conflation that was wholly innocent, and rather than being given the benefit of the doubt, and rather than actually looking at this guy's entire history, the left ran to bury him and to dance on his grave. And it's really disgusting. And all this really does is make people afraid, especially anyone who's not on the far left, to open their mouths. And you and I have talked about this more than once, but I see it in my own cohort of really smart, well-read, sophisticated, well-traveled people who will only speak behind closed doors to a select number of their nearest and dearest about what they really think about any given topic: political, social, religious, cultural, whatever. Because we are in this moment where, unless you're adhering to some really wacky shit, like unless you're like Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is out there plugging a book that is basically like Israel should no longer exist.
Right.
You're basically on the verge of getting canceled on any given day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Rich, to his credit, wrote a defense of himself in National Review at the time, explaining that he had merged the two words. And if you watch the segment, it's obvious that that's what happened. And really naming the reason we know about the Badger Institute and Indiana State is because he told us in that piece that he was getting canceled. And the whole point of his piece was, cancel me for something that I actually said, not for something that I didn't say. We've crossed over into new territory where you're getting canceled for something you didn't actually even say. And NPR is admitting that its own media correspondent, who, by the way, whoever you are, C. Mandler, you are not the media correspondent. Maybe you should defer to the media correspondent, because the reason David Folkenflik is the media correspondent is because he covers the media personalities in the media all the time. And maybe he knows Rich Lowry slightly better than you do and his history, as opposed to you, C, who seems to see some white guy who you were sure to label as a conservative in both of your pieces, and doesn't just jump to the conclusion that he's a raging racist who just drops N-bombs on any live media appearance. But David Folkenflik that night was tweeting out, "This is not what happened. Stop it." And this piece by the Public editor points out, oh, but the poor C didn't know. They didn't read David Folkenflik's tweet. Well, too bad on you, C. You suck. That's why you have a media correspondent. Call him up and ask me if he knows anything about Rich Lowry. All of it is so gross. And Maureen, to my point that I was just making, both of the NPR pieces, the first one they did, which is the hit piece, and then the so-called correction, where they updated to include Rich's denial, and I defended him, which I think they included, and so did Andy McCarthy. Both of them say as follows, the headline: conservative editor-in-chief appears to use racial slur. The second one, conservative editor-in-chief says mispronunciation led to accusations of using slur. Now you tell me, why is it relevant what Rich's political views are? Why do they put Is it that liberals cannot be racist? It's clearly because this is NPR's worldview when it comes to people on the right.
No question. This is the same outlet that, if I'm correct with the timeline, because this has been such a year of whiplash, fired the whistleblower who wrote this incredible piece. Forgive me, I forget his name, this like hero's name, saying that NPR was basically spoon feeding their worldview without adhering to actual facts.
Uri Berliner. UYRI Berliner.
Yes, that's the guy. And he was basically, the call was coming from inside the house. Like, and it wasn't just philosophical, and it wasn't just about journalistic ethics. It was also about commerce. He was saying we are shedding listeners by the day. They don't come to us anymore because they don't believe a thing we have to say to them. And he got fired for it. I mean, they didn't say that was the reason, but that was the reason. And he got rehired by the Free Press, which is definitely a much better home for him. But this is why nobody listens to NPR, unless you're like a true delusional believer that all people on the right must be inherently racist, inherently sexist, inherently intellectually limited. That's their stock in trade now. It's so sad. It's just sad. And I just, the only good thing that comes out of this, I think, is that Rich Lowry, those 2 cancellations are bullshit, but that he survived this. And I hope it's an object lesson for anyone on the left who has such an itchy trigger finger. I mean, again, we were just talking about the litany of reasons Doug Emhoff should really be investigated. And it's just swords down. Nobody's going for it except for us. Same thing here. It's like they'll never, the correction, you know, that old saw, the story's a headline, the correction is like a thumbnail, you know, but he survived it. And that's a good thing. That's the only good thing.
I think if you go to nationalreview.com, you'll see they're actually asking for donations to send Rich on a tour to other places that didn't cancel him, you know, to support his ability to get out there, which I love. I will say it's so offensive that they would think this is how conservatives sit around and talk, you know, that they're just dropping the N-word on one another. I've literally never heard somebody say that word to me. You know, the only place I've ever heard that word is in rap music that comes on the show. On the radio, not on the show, but on the radio, right? Like you turn on Spotify and just let it play. You hear that word on these rap songs all the time. I mean, it's like incredible to me. I have literally never uttered that word in my life. I teach my kids, you can't say it. If you read it in a book, my God, like you don't understand, like they don't know. Then I think the natural response is like, why have we attached such power to that word to where we have to scare children? We have to scare, like I realize it's deeply offensive and has a terrible history, but it's just, my God, Rich almost got canceled for an accidental utterance that sounded something like it. During the Black Lives Matter thing, we saw a New York Times reporter, the COVID reporter, he got fired because he repeated it when it was said to him in a question. anyway, people need to just take a breath and understand that there are not secret cabal meetings of conservatives where they're dropping the N-word just because they're thrilled no leftist is present to report them. By the way, it's the left that has the historical and present day problem with racism. Okay, speaking of dishonest media, you referenced the clip. So James O'Keefe, he was on the show the other day of now OMG Media, went undercover through one of his staffers, a female staffer, and got this producer for one of their weekend shows on camera. I mean, it's admitting the obvious. We all knew this about MSNBC, but it's still interesting to hear a producer at the network admit it, saying the following. Watch.
So do you feel like MSNBC is doing enough to help the Harris campaign?
I mean, they're doing all they can.
Which is why?
Amplify her message. What her message of the day is their message of the day. It hammers home the point that I'm making, that this news network is indistinguishable from the party.
Are they just the Democratic Party's mouthpiece?
Exactly.
MSNBC is the Democratic Party's mouthpiece.
Yes. Yes.
So is MSNBC just like doing whatever it takes to get Kamala elected?
Yes. They've made their viewers dumber over the years. Viewers get mad at the guests or the hosts if the hosts were to criticize Democrats.
Because they're so brainwashed.
Yes.
Into thinking that the Democratic Party can do no wrong.
Not that they can't do any wrong. It's maybe they can do wrong. I just don't want to hear about it. Don't say it out loud, because if you say it out loud, it helps Trump. I think brainwashing and dumbing down,
it's bad.
Aggressive,
I get it.
Helps Trump.
Poor Basil Hamden. Pro tip: when your date sounds more like the Inquisitor at a deposition and has her handbag pointed at you just so and asks you to speak into it, oh, a note of caution before you offer your unvarnished thoughts. It was unbelievable. It was like,
yeah, and also,
would you say, yes, I would? What'd you say?
And don't drink. Like, don't get so, fuzzy that you're sort of like spouting proudly what you're doing. I mean, my favorite part of that clip, Megyn, is when he says we're dumbing our audience down. Like, this is the viewership that likes to feel like they're so high on their own supply of like moral self-righteousness, and that every political position that's espoused by this network is the only true and correct one. And he's basically saying we've dumbed them down and we've brainwashed them, and it's good for us. And it's, like, let's just not get Trump elected. It's and the way he's smiling, he's like, he thinks it's funny. He's kind of proud of it. It seems like, I mean, I could watch that thing on a loop. It's amazing.
This is all I could think of a couple of months ago when they were all indignant about Ronna McDaniel being hired as a contributor after she left the RNC, and they acted like the devil himself had been under contract now to MS. They all went on the air trying to get her fired, which was ultimately successful, talking about themselves and their network like they were Honest Abe themselves. They, like George Washington, we cannot tell a lie here at MSNBC. We could not possibly hire someone who lies for pay. Remember, we cut this soundbite and I resurrected here.
I want to associate myself with all my colleagues, both at MSNBC and at NBC News, who have voiced loud and principled objections to our company putting on the payroll someone who hasn't just attacked us as journalists, but someone who is part of an ongoing project to get rid of our system of government.
We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it.
When NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News?
We welcome Republican voice. I wish more Republicans. I want Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney to get right here and come talk to me. The reality is, this isn't a difference of opinion. She literally backed an illegal scheme to steal an election in the state of Michigan.
And our democracy is in danger because of the lies that people like Ronna McDaniel have pushed on this country.
We've also said election deniers. It's not just they can do that on our airwaves, but that they can do that as one of us, as badge-carrying employees of NBC News, as paid contributors to our sacred airwaves.
Oh, my God. Sacred airwaves. Sacred airwaves with an ID badge, Maureen. That's what really sent Nicole Wallace off the deep end. But this guy, Basil Hamden, gives it up in that clip with James O'Keefe's person.
I mean, does his badge work anymore, do you think? Like, does he get to like participate in like these sacred airwaves going out across the nation? I mean, by the way, is there anyone more insufferable in this moment, like this side of Sunny Hostin, than Rachel Maddow? It is like she has gone
I'm going to say Nicole Wallace is up there. I'm going to say she's giving her a run for her money.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I don't see her as much as Rachel Maddow's mug is in my face like all the time. And I watching them 2A1, do this sort of public execution of a conservative who, I believe at least when they like fired her before they even got her on the air, at least got all her money. It's just, again, they are telling us who they are. They are at least showing us and telling us
that's their motto.
They are.
That's their motto. This is who we are. And we're like, we know. Yeah, we got it. But to hear him say...
Thanks for stating the obvious, yeah.
Right, but to hear him say, like, we're doing all we can to help the Harris campaign, that we try not to say anything critical of her or it will upset our audience, explains a lot. Like that they're taking Harris campaign messaging and just putting it on the air every day as their news. That explains SOT 3. Let's play it again. That explains SOT 3.
An interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
It's funny. I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this. And to me, it's the right thing to do. Support women. When we lift up women, we support women, whether it's pay equity, childcare, family leave, and all these issues that, this post-Dobbs hellscape, women should not be less than.
There's a pop culture phrase, wife guy, which you've kind of been known as. Are you familiar with this?
I've heard about it.
As called a wife guy, a proud wife guy? How do you feel about that?
Well, if I do something annoying to Kamala and she gets upset, I'll just show her that article.
And by the way, Maureen, again, that was after she knew about Nannygate. This was Jen Psaki, the longer SOT that we put in that montage. Watch her talk about her journalism.
Some, mainly in the right-wing ecosystem, have made the comparison to others who have come from government or politics into the media, including me. And that is a comparison I felt like I had to address. I got into public service for the same reason that many people do, to serve the American people. And there are many others who have followed a similar path, who I have a great deal of respect for. But here's the thing. That kind of experience only matters and only has value to viewers, all of you, if it is paired with honesty and with good faith. And our democracy is in danger because of the lies that people like Ronna McDaniel have pushed on this country.
Honesty and good faith.
This is a woman who, while she was Biden's press secretary, and it's worth noting, she asked Obama for that position more than once, and he said no. He didn't think she had what it took. And really what he thought was that she didn't have the warmth or the congeniality to do the job. And we saw that. She would routinely snicker and smirk and roll her eyes and dismiss questions that contradicted the Biden White House's party line. And I feel the same way about George Stephanopoulos. It's always boggled my mind how a news organization, a large one, a major one, at that, can hire somebody whose job was to spin for their bosses. There's a great documentary about White House press secretaries, and like the spine of it is that they all lie. They're lie. They're partisans. And they're partisans, and they get sent out by their boss often to take the bullet. So I don't understand what she's doing in that chair. And if for your audience who might not see that clip but hear it, She's smiling as she's asking these questions. She is grinning from ear to ear. She can barely articulate the words properly. She's like practically levitating out of her chair. She's talking to Doug Emhoff, wife guy, not the guy who knocked up the nanny. And we now know attacked a woman. Are you kidding
Allegedly.
me?
This is why I call her Dora. I call her Dora. This is my clip. This is Jen Psaki in another form. SOT 7.
To dance the kitty cat dance, we need to scratch our kitty paws, stomp our feet, and wag our kitty tails. We got the mermaid free! Yay!
That's her. And here's another example. Here's the real Jen Psaki, who I'm telling you, once you've seen the Dora thing, you can't unsee it. Here's an example of her hard-hitting, honest, good faith journalism. SOT 4.
You've also been front and center in talking about abortion rights. Why do you think that's so important? Do you think he's scared of debating her? The other thing I have been thinking about a lot is how it must be for you when you see people attacking your wife. What do you guys do when you have downtime? Now, she's a great cook, loves to cook.
Is.
You've said she's tried to teach you to cook. What can you cook now that she taught you? And you also passed on advice to Gwen Walz. What did you pass along to her?
We're both speechless.
I know.
The amazing thing about this. This is, I think, possibly the worst sin. It just makes for really bad television. It's really dull to watch this. There are no intellectual sparks. Like, there's no conflict. There's no, what is he going to say to this? What is she going to ask next? Like, what curveball is coming? There's no art to it at all. I don't mean to be graphic. It's just, it feels like the left and the people who are running on the left, it's just this constant circle jerk of how great they all are. It's nauseating. And it is a public disservice on a grand scale.
And running cover, nonstop running cover for these Dems. Look at Joe Scarborough. Is this morning, you guys, or yesterday morning? On the subject of, it's today, Kamala Harris supporting using our taxpayer dollars to pay for sex change operations and medicines for prisoners, serial killers. She wants you and me to pay for their sex change operations and illegals. It's in her own hand. She wrote it to the ACLU in 2019. That's not 2000. That's not 24 years ago. 2019 is 5 years ago. She was running for president. It was important to state your real beliefs. And here's how Joe Scarborough dealt with that on MSNBC, the DNC's mouthpiece, this morning.
By the way, just for people that are watching going, wait, how could they not? How could they not vote for Kamala Harris? What they're seeing, and I saw it this weekend while I was watching football games, commercial after commercial after commercial after commercial of Kamala Harris in 2019 saying that she supported federal funding for transition operations.
She's a radical. She's a communist.
And they get quotes from her in 2019 where she was trying to be more woke than anybody else. In 2019. And I think the campaign's done a good job cleaning a lot of that stuff up. They need to look at the commercials that are being run over and over and over again.
They have not even denied it. All her campaign spokesperson said was, that's not a position she's espoused in this campaign. Well, what is that? That is not a denial or a rejection.
Right. It's like she put her foot on the brake for a moment. I mean, like, okay, Kamala Harris clearly believes that no matter who you are, whether you're a murderer, what have you, that everybody needs to have the right to self-actualize. You know, this is amazing to me. Amazing to me. She can't run away from it. So the media just won't acknowledge it, except for, you know, those helpful handmaidens such as Joe Scarborough, who will clean up on aisle 9 for her. And this is the level of discourse we're going to get. And I have really low hopes for what we're going to see with her on 60 Minutes, because I think it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be a barnyard slop heap of saliva dripping out of whatever reporter has been tasked with covering her. And we're going to learn nothing. And if she is not asked about her husband, then you can't take any of it seriously, not an iota of it.
That's right. It's going to be Bill Whitaker, so we'll see. In the meantime, Team Harris, and I do mean just Harris as opposed to Harris Walz, appears to be wanting to distance itself from the pathological liar, Tim Walz. Very interesting piece hit yesterday in Politico, late yesterday. Headline, Walz says he speaks like everybody else, and it's not working for the campaign. Key members of Harris's circle were not aware, reading here, of some of Walz's inaccurate statements until they became public, despite the vetting process. And the whole thing goes on to talk about how the plain-speaking Minnesota governor has had to explain a growing number of inaccurate statements and, at times, embellishments about his past. They range from comments about his military service to his visit to Hong Kong more than 3 decades ago to clarifying that his family did not specifically use in vitro fertilization. I mean, if by clarify you mean to 100% admit he reversed himself or that he lied when caught by others, then yes. But the fact that the campaign felt the need to put this out, that she didn't know about most of these, they're saying she knew he had the DWI arrest. He had fronted that for the vetters before she chose him, but not much else. They appear to be learning about this guy's serial lying, as we all are, and hence this drop to Politico saying, we didn't know, and it's not working for us. This, Maureen, as he's still out there trying to claim that he just misspoke when he said he was in Tiananmen Square, that he was in China the day of the Tiananmen Square massacre. We actually went back. Okay, so now Tuesday night, he just said he's a knucklehead, right? Then we played a soundbite of him yesterday where he was asked about it and he tried to say, I speak like everybody else does. This is just what everybody does. And I just misspoke. It was just a matter of I was there in August, but I wasn't there when the massacre happened 3 months earlier. I just got the dates mixed up. That's all. Here's what he said yesterday. Okay, SOT 14.
Look, I have my dates wrong. I was in Hong Kong in China in 1989. That move from Hong Kong into China, it was profound for me. That was the summer of democracy. I said it's where I understood how sacred democracy was. It's what encouraged me about 15 back and forth with my students, taking them to China. I speak like everybody else speaks. I need to be clear, I will tell you that, but here's my whole point on that thing with China. I do understand China a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump. Kamala Harris understands China. My clarity to take away from the message is something I want to be very clear. August of '89, into Hong Kong, into China, 15 times with students to try and do this. My point being on this, Kamala Harris and I understand American jobs are more important than where Donald Trump tried to save Chinese jobs.
Okay. He misspoke, just like everybody does. It was just a slip of the tongue. You know, he was there in August, but he wasn't there in June. As though being in Lower Manhattan in November of 2001 was exactly the same as being there on September 11th, 2001. It's just a small little detail. Forgot. Okay, we went back, and this has been reported by others, Minnesota Public Radio, then our friends at the Free Beacon, and others as well, including the K-File over at CNN. Here he is. We don't have this on camera, but I'm going to read it to you. June 4th, 2009, per a congressional transcript. We don't have the sound, and the video has been set to private, so we can't pull clips. He said, quote, "For those of you in the room who were in Tiananmen that day, I want to say thank you to you for some very personal reasons. 20 years ago today, this is June 4th, the day of the massacre. 20 years ago today, I was in Hong Kong preparing to go to Foshan to teach at Foshan #1 Middle School in the context of Tiananmen. Okay, 20 years ago today, said that June 4th, 2009. May 20th, 2014, congressional hearing. Don't have the sound, but this is what he said, quoting, As a young man, I was just going to teach high school in Foshan in Guangdong province and was in Hong Kong in May 1989. As the events were unfolding, several of us just went in. Okay, sure. Then we get to June 19th, 2019, where he appeared on the Chad Hartman show. And here is what he said.
When did you live in China?
Late 80s.
Okay.
So, I was there. I see this happening in Hong Kong as a more serious note. I was in Hong Kong on June 4th, 1989, when, of course, Tiananmen Square happened. And I was in China after that. It was very strange because, of course, all outside transmissions were blocked, Voice of America, and, of course, there was no phones or email or anything. So I was kind of out of touch. It took me a month to know the Berlin Wall had fallen when I was living there.
I was in Hong Kong on June 4th, 1989, when Tiananmen Square happened once again. And here we go to just recently, February 16th, 2024, on Pod Save America, a left-wing podcast, where he had the following exchange.
I saw that you taught in a Chinese high school from 1989 to 1990.
I did.
Were you there during the protests and
I was in Hong Kong.
Square massacre? Okay.
Yeah, I was in Hong Kong. So we were the first group of American high school teachers to teach in Chinese high school. But I was in Hong Kong when it happened. I was in Hong Kong on June 4th when Tiananmen happened.
Yeah.
Quite a few of our folks decided not to go in. There was a lot of European in Hong Kong, don't do this, don't go, don't support them in this. And my thinking at the time was what a golden opportunity to go tell, how it was. And I did have a lot of freedom to do that. Taught American history and could tell the story.
2009, 2014, 2019, 2024. And that's just what we could find the records of. But he just simply misspoke, like we all do, Maureen.
That thing he said at the top of the clips that you were playing, where I speak like everybody else. Don't speak for me, because I don't speak like that. I know you don't speak like that. I tell the truth. I can keep my stories straight because I'm not lying all the time. I don't fabricate stuff to make myself puffed up and feel more important than I am. This guy is pathological. Circling back to our friend Brian Williams, he's another one who said he was there when the Berlin Wall fell. Guess what? He wasn't. He got there the day after. You don't misremember consequential, defining democratic events in history. You don't misremember whether you were there or not. It's not like, I think I saw fish in 89, but I was stoned. I don't know. It's not the same thing. It's just not the same thing. This guy is so pathological. When he said that thing during the debate about his son witnessing a shooting, I just immediately said, that's a lie. I don't believe him. I don't believe you, sir. I don't believe you. Because all he does is lie. And he seems to be at the center of far too many events, like he's Zelig or Forrest Gump. He was in war. He was over here. He was in Tiananmen. He's like, it's not, and none of it adds up. It's so just wild.
I don't know. That's a good point. It is like a Forrest Gump thing. He was everywhere. He was in the IVF clinic. He was there being commended by the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce.
Megyn,
he was in war.
He was the spermatozoa in the Petri dish. That was the IV going into his, please. It's amazing. Let's get Tim Walz on 60 Minutes. When does he get his turn in the spotlight?
Please, God in heaven, let him come on the Megyn Kelly show. I promise I won't just emerge with his jugular. I'll give him a very fair interview. Just please, I've been a good person. I deserve this. Please send him here. Okay, I gave it a shot. What did we move over? Wait, my team's telling me something. My crack team actually has the clip of Brian Williams and his lies. They're so good.
Amazing.
Let's watch it.
The story actually started with a terrible moment a dozen years back during the invasion of Iraq, when the helicopter we were traveling in was forced down after being hit by an RPG.
Okay, sure, Jan. Wait, I've got that. Hold on.
Sure, Jan.
My fellow Maureen McCormick there.
That's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember, there was a time when Brian Williams was seen as like the cool guy, like the cool middle-aged guy who was giving you the news, but he also liked alternative music, and like he would go on Letterman, and I think it was like on Letterman
all the time,
or one of those, and talk about seeing the dead bodies floating by during Katrina. And, he really went into detail. And I don't know if you've ever known anyone like this in your life. I've known like a pathological liar or two. And the dominant emotion you feel when hearing their stories is just embarrassment for them, because their tales are so tall and so completely unbelievable and only really serve to valorize themselves. And this guy is such a loss leader for her ticket. And I just feel like it's karma. It's exactly who she deserves to be running with, because she is just as fake. She is as much of a fraud. I don't believe a word that comes out of her mouth either. She just is a better delivery system.
I'll tell you what. I'm the opposite. I believe all the stories. It's not until they're totally disproven. I'm so gullible. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. You were there at Katrina. And I until given reason to doubt, I usually believe. But I no longer believe Tim Walz. I certainly don't believe Doug Emhoff. And I've written Brian Williams off for a very long time. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to give you the latest on Diddy. Things just went from bad to worse for him. More with Maureen right after this. Imagine waking up one day to find out your home no longer belongs to you, that someone somewhere has stolen your property right out from under you. It sounds unthinkable, but it is a sad reality for some American homeowners and a risk for anyone that owns property. House stealing, that's what the FBI calls it, and it's a form of real estate fraud where scammers leverage loopholes in the system to fraudulently transfer your home's title into their name. Then they take out loans behind your back and they sell it. That's amazing. They're taking out loans against your property, or they're just selling it off to somebody else. By the time you find this whole thing out, the scammer's long gone, leaving you, the legit homeowner, to clean up the mess. But right now, triple lock protection is available through HomeTitleLock.com, offering 24/7 title monitoring, alerts, and restoration services. You can sign up today at HomeTitleLock.com and use promo code Megyn for 30 days of protection for free and a comprehensive title scan to make sure you're not already a victim. That's promo code Megyn and HomeTitleLock.com, or by using the link below. Genucel is back with a stunning end of summer sale. For a limited time, you get the top-selling Genucel Dark Spot Corrector right now to see those dark marks and sunspots disappear right before your eyes. Stephanie from Santa Cruz, California says, love this product. Leaves my skin looking younger, even at my age, she writes. Imagine sunspots, brown spots, discoloration, even red inflamed patches all disappearing in front of your very eyes. The Genucel guarantee, you will see results the very first day, guaranteed, or you will get your money back. Who else gives that? Take advantage of the Genucel most popular package, which also includes the classic Genucel bags and puffiness treatment and immediate effects product, all at close to 70% off. And if you're a new customer, there's a big surprise waiting for you on Genucel.com right now. Just look for the word red. Intriguing. What does it mean? Go to Genucel.com/MK today and start looking younger tomorrow. Genucel.com/MK. Get a free limited edition beauty box with your order. That's GENUCEL.com/MK. Genucel.com/MK. And Maureen, things going from bad to worse for P. Diddy, who is, in jail right now and not getting bail as he awaits trial on these federal charges against him, sex trafficking and others, racketeering behavior, etc. But now there is an attorney down in, I think he's in Texas, named Tony Busby, who publicized a hotline asking for people who are, claiming to be victims of Diddy's. And he is on camera saying that he's about to file a lawsuit on behalf of 120 alleged sex abuse victims. He said he's gotten over 12,000. In fact, it had gone even higher than that last I checked, calls from people claiming to be victims of Diddy's. And there will be a lot of fakers in there who just have their hands out and want money from this very rich man. But he says he's done an investigation and found at least 120 who he says actually were, according to him, an allegation, abused by Diddy. He said they have almost 100 people working on this task. And he's claiming that One of them is a 9-year-old boy accusing Sean Diddy Combs of sexual assault and abuse, saying that he was abused after he auditioned at the Bad Boy Record Studio in New York City. Busby alleges other boys were there to audition as well. All of them were trying to land a record deal. All of them were minors. This individual, the 9-year-old, was sexually abused, allegedly by Sean Combs and several other people at the studio, with the promise to both his parents and himself of getting a record deal. Again, these are allegations. It's not proof that it happened, but 120 is a big number. And it just keeps going, Maureen. I mean, we're having a new person come out of the woodwork every day with new allegations against him.
And as has been the case thus far, there is a deafening silence from the hip hop community, from the music industry at large, from the A-list celebrities who frequented Diddy's white parties. There was a report today or yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that Denzel Washington was seen shouting at Diddy upon leaving one of Diddy's parties, "You don't respect anyone," that he and his wife had clearly seen something that disturbed them. And now there are reports that the next big name to go down in this scandal is Jay-Z. And I do think this story is only going to continue to get bigger. And I kind of think, I mean, you can't prove a negative, but I think it's extremely odd that people who have known Diddy, collaborated with him, partied with him, dated him, cough, cough, J-Lo, have nothing to say. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly
are not
right.
even issuing. I would like to remove myself from this narrative. I knew nothing. I saw nothing. And these allegations sicken and disgust me. And my thoughts and prayers are with all of the, in brackets, alleged victims.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not Usher, not Bieber, not J-Lo, not Jay-Z, not Ashton Kutcher. These are just the people we know. We're in close contact with him over the years. I mean, the list is much, much longer. Go back to his birthday list. Go back to Oprah and all the names he was reading out one after the other. Beyonce, and see what they have to say. Yes, to your point, there was an allegation made by a woman named Jaguar Wright, a singer, who says she knows Diddy and Jay-Z on Piers Morgan earlier this week, condemning both of them in some very strong terms. We'll see where that goes, if she can back any of that up. But there are people like Wendy Williams coming out, making comments about him. I guess that there's a history there. I didn't know that Wendy Williams had been pushed out of her radio job many years ago after she suggested that Diddy was gay. She had insinuated he was gay, which ultimately got her fired from her job at Hot 97. And she is on the record saying he nearly succeeded in taking down her entire career. There was an incident between them from a 2017 appearance he made on her show that people are circulating now saying this is very awkward. He's bringing up her, I think at the time, 16-year-old son. Here it is.
As the mother of a now 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Who I met backstage, he
did?
He's a great young man.
Oh, thank you. Yes. You represent a lot.
There's the pause, and the suggestion is some people worried, like, was that a threat? What was that? Because was she in the position of knowing too much about him? Total speculation, Maureen, but it is stunning how many people knew about him, and these lesser known figures who actually were sounding the alarm on him only to be totally ignored.
You know, it's what I think gives that theory credence, that was a veiled threat in public, on air, to Wendy Williams. It's very rare for Wendy Williams, of all people, to be tongue-tied. She was a huge personality on Hot 97, which was like the dominant hip hop station in the New York City market and the tri-state area. And she did lose her job because of him. He had that much power. And, you know, I saw there was a conversation. This is the wrong person to ask because she's aged out beyond this cohort. But Bill Maher was talking to Fran Lebowitz about this scandal on Friday. And he was asking her why there doesn't seem to be more outrage, especially among the Hollywood community. And she really couldn't answer it. But I kind of think it's because this kind of like outre sexual behavior is kind of baked into rock and roll, right? It's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it's like they're always supposed to be pushing boundaries. But like now we're talking about serial rape and pedophilia and, you know, a cabal of people that seems to have been all in on it. And I think unlike R. Kelly, like this is not, Sean Combs is not a lone actor here. And I think a lot of people are being quiet because they face losing everything.
Yeah, that's beyond. I mean, I know a few rock stars, and those allegations are beyond anything. By the way, not for nothing, but we're watching the movie Almost Famous now, and it's just so fun. It's a great movie. Cameron Crowe, so talented. Maureen, great to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you, Megyn. And thank you for the kind words about my book. Totally unnecessary. Always appreciated. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. It's totally heartfelt. Guys, have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Okay, also, before we go, I want to tell you something exciting has happened. Doug Brunt's book, The Mysterious Case of Rudolph Diesel, is now out in paperback. And actually, it is quite lovely. It's a great paperback. I love how they captured the cover perfectly. And I love the fact that inside the book, they kept the color photos, which they almost never do. So the interior like photo insert is A++. And obviously it's less expensive, and it was on the New York Times bestseller list and all the bestseller lists, and is still in the works to become a major motion picture. We'll see. They have an option, and you know how Hollywood is, but it'd be very exciting if it happened. I actually keep meaning to send this to James Woods because he helped get Oppenheimer made. This is right up his alley. I got a note to self. Please do this. It's called The Mysterious Case of Rudolph Diesel. And as famous author Jay Winnick, New York Times bestselling author, put it, it is equal parts Walter Isaacson and Sherlock Holmes yanks back the curtain on the greatest caper of the 20th century in this riveting history. Diesel, you see his name every time you go to fill up your car with gasoline. You don't even know, most people, that it's a proper noun. It's a man, Rudy D., and he was the Elon Musk of his time. I mean, even bigger, really. And he disappeared off the back of a boat one day in the early 20th century, just as World War II or I was about to break out. And so it didn't get anywhere near the press coverage that it would if somebody like an Elon Musk, God forbid, were to go missing. And they said, okay, he committed suicide. I guess he committed suicide. Well, Doug Brunt takes that on in this book. And so you will learn a lot about American history, the robber barons of the time, the Rockefellers, and so on. And you will find out what happened to one of the most important inventors in history and what the truth is, the true resolution of the mysterious case of Rudolph Diesel by my husband, Douglas Brunt. Check it out.